Good morning. Good morning. Here we are again in a very strange little work. Strange, not because it is difficult or exotic or imported from some secret cave, but strange because it is almost embarrassingly simple, and yet underneath the simplicity, something begins to shake. I wonder if it is some kind of a proving ground, a small testing place where we can safely discover what has been hiding in plain sight. You know, sometimes the most disarming thing you can do to a pretender is turn on a small lamp and say, "Stand there a minute, let us see you." Today, the little lamp is a tiny discipline, hardly worth a headline. For 7 days, reduce personal self-reference. What would happen to consciousness if, for a short season, the word I were set down, gently, playfully, but consistently? Not forever, not as a rule of life, but as a week's experiment. Is it possible that a single syllable could be carrying a whole universe of claim, and that by not voicing it, that universe would be revealed for what it is? Oh, not at all. Not at all. This is not a virtue badge. This is not a punishment. This is not a word game in which we prove our cleverness by inventing elaborate sentences that pirouette around grammar. We are not here to become linguistic gymnasts, nor are we here to impress our neighbors by adopting a new, solemn way of speaking. Please don't go home and terrify your family with pronoun police. No, the point is not the sound of the letter, the point is the reflex it exposes. It is a lamp held up to see what is moving behind the curtain, the instant the word I steps up to the microphone. Let us put it as a question so that we keep our freedom. What would happen inside if for one day, just one to begin, whenever the word I tried to leap out, with its usual importance, the mouth closed, the breath waited, and awareness looked? What story was just about to be told? What defense was mobilizing? What boast was preparing its entrance? And what fear was trying to avoid embarrassment? There is an alarm system hiding in that syllable. The false self depends on a near constant buzzing of self-reference to feel real. The moment the hum quiets, it looks around and says, "Who turned off the machine?" And it panics. You need a sense of humor for this. You will not be struck by lightning for slipping. No celestial grammar teacher will rap your knuckles. But you may find, within the first hour, that the tongue has muscle memory. It will reach for that word as automatically as the hand reaches for glasses that are already on the nose. And when you catch it, there, that very instant, that is the experiment. Not to succeed, but to see. To see what the personal center is trying to accomplish with that word. To take credit, to assign blame, to defend a space, to decorate a story, to schedule a future, to rewrite a past. This is not a moral challenge. It has nothing to do with becoming good instead of bad, or refined instead of crude. Oh, you can be polite and still be knee-deep in personal selfing. This is a consciousness experiment. We are not policing speech. We are illuminating identity. We are asking whether the steady parade of I is actually a mask for an anxiety that cannot survive the light of simple presence. Is it possible that there is a selfhood beneath the chatter, quiet, universal, unafraid, that requires no horn to be blown and no barricades to be defended? Expect awkwardness at first. Expect a kind of mild, almost comic irritation, the way you feel when a shirt label scratches the neck and you cannot immediately find the scissors. Expect, too, a few laughs at your own expense. Please let there be laughter, because the little sovereign does not enjoy being interrupted and will try every detour. Sentences will do backflips. The coffee order at the corner shop may come out sounding like a telegram. Good, let it. Then, after a few hours, perhaps after a day, expect something softer, a little humility, a sweet, almost tender recognition that much of what seemed necessary was merely habit, and that nothing collapses when the drumbeat slows. And then, if you stay with it, expect the first mercy, a quiet contact, not a spectacle, not an idea, a sense, a little click inside as if a door you hadn't noticed before has swung open a half-inch. There is life here without your constant announcement of it. There is awareness that does not need to be introduced by a pronoun. And in that awareness is peace. Nothing heroic, just peace. So the dare is gentle. One day without voicing the word I, as much as you can manage without becoming weird, and then return and report. Tell on yourself tenderly what panicked, what invented detours, where did irritation flare and where did relief come. We are not gathering ammunition against ourselves. We are gathering evidence that the separate self-story is just that, a story, and that the storyteller loses his script when the spotlight moves to presence. Let us agree on this so that we do not turn the weak into a parade of self-condemnation. We are not trying to become better egos. We are not attempting to perfect a mask. We are letting the mask itch until we see it is a mask, and then we let it slip. If a sentence comes out jumbled, smile. If a friend notices and asks, "Are you all right?" smile again and say, "Just listening." They may not understand yet, but your peace will communicate what your explanation cannot. Here in this room, right now, there is already something present that is not improved by our speaking or diminished by our silence. Let us give it the courtesy of some space. For 7 days we will hold up this small lamp and watch what dances. And as it dances, we will not chase it with sticks. We will watch until it grows tired of performing and sits down beside us as nothing at all. Then the experiment has begun to work. Then the proving ground proves not us, but the presence that needs no I. Now, before we take another step, let us be very clear about the little word we are examining. We are not waging war on a pronoun. English has to do what English has to do, and no one is being asked to speak like a telegram forever. No, the point is not the syllable. The point is what the syllable is carrying when it walks into the room with its chest out. What is that? It is the uninvestigated belief that there exists somewhere in this body-mind complex a private center that owns, manages, and authors life, a sort of district manager of the universe stationed behind the eyes who says, "This is my breath. These are my fears, these are my achievements, and these are my plans." That belief, quietly seated, rarely questioned, rides hidden inside the word I, and takes every ride it can get. Oh, not at all, not at all. This does not mean that we begin to despise the body, or throw away the name our parents gave, or pretend that personality has no function in the world. The body will still ask for breakfast. The calendar will still have Wednesday on it. Personality can still tell a joke and drive a car and sign a letter. We are not going to become passive, or vague, or irresponsible, or drearily mystical in public. It does not mean we stop acting. It does not mean we give up initiative. It does not mean we pretend not to exist. The hands will still wash the dishes and type the note and shake a neighbor's hand. But, and here is the change of government, the belief that these hands are independent operators with a life of their own must be brought into the light. The doer, the owner, the private claimant is what is under question. Let us ask a simple question that a child could ask. Who is this I that says I am thinking, I am afraid, I am needed, I am failing, I am superior? Is it the heart? The heart never introduces itself, it just beats. Is it the brain? Even the brain never fills out a business card. It just conducts. Is it a name? Names are useful tags for the postman and the telephone, but a tag is not the thing itself. Is it the personality? Personality is a beautiful instrument, a tone, a flavor, but an instrument is not the musician. Where exactly is the inner office of this private me that claims to run the show? And if it cannot be located, is it possible that we have been honoring a rumor? Now, the metaphysical claim that has to be laid down plainly, gently but plainly, is this: there is no me or you, separate and apart from God. There is but one life, one being, one invisible selfhood, appearing as countless forms, faces, temperaments, vocations, stages of growth. Individuals? Yes, unique expressions, notes in a symphony. Separate private selves? No. No. There is but life, and the form is the way life shows its own variety. God is not somewhere else, watching from a balcony while we struggle on the street. God is the very life of us, the very awareness by which these words are heard now. We are not two beings trying to strike a bargain. We are one being in two functions, the invisible essence and the visible expression. Please hear what it does not mean again so that we do not slide into an old ditch. It does not mean a collapse of individuality into a gray mush of anonymity. It does not mean quietism, passivity, letting the parcels pile up unclaimed at the door. It does not produce a doormat. It produces freedom. It produces poise. It produces a lightness of step because the strain of private ownership is eased. You do not become less effective. You become more available. You do not become a recluse unless your temperament has always leaned that way. You become surprisingly present where you are, because there is no little person inside buzzing with self-concern. Action goes on, and often better, but the anxious doer has been released from its fake coronation. Why, then, work with speech? Because speech is not only expression, it is reinforcement. Every I want, I need, I'm afraid, is like placing another brick into a small temple dedicated to separation. Language trains attention, and attention hardens into identity. Whisper something to yourself long enough, and it will take up residence. When the tongue endlessly says, I, my, mine, it is practicing a private universe in which it must then live, with all the strain of guarding the borders and defending the story. And so, for 7 days, we simply interrupt the drill. Not with guilt, not with heroism, with curiosity. What was that I about to defend? What was that I about to acquire? What was about to be lost if that I could not speak? In that interruption, sometimes for only a second, a breath, the most remarkable thing happens. Something else can be felt. Presence, stillness, a hum that is not agitation. It is not an idea. It is a click, small, clean, like a latch inside settling into its place. And the moment that click is felt, the entire proposition shifts from theory to fact. Up to that moment, it is all argument and language and phrases. After that moment, there is a sense of something here that does not begin when the sentence starts or end when the sentence stops. That something is not improved by your compliments nor diminished by your complaints. It simply is. And as it is, the burden of self-authorship lifts, and life moves more simply. Oh, the schedule is the same, but the interior posture is different. Let us keep the humor kindly as we do this, because the ego loves solemnity almost as much as it loves applause. If you catch the mouth forming a very important I to explain, justify, claim, or protest, smile without malice and let the word evaporate before it forms. See if the sentence, stripped of its little sovereign, can still walk. It usually can, and if it cannot, perhaps it did not need to be said. We are not gagging the truth. We are ungagging truth. We are discovering that awareness is present before language, during language, and after language, so that language becomes tool, not tyrant. You will discover that fear and desire, the twins who keep the private self so busy, are very attached to that pronoun. I might lose. I must have. I will be left out. I will be embarrassed. See how all of these lean on the same crutch. It is not that life will become featureless or that preferences vanish. It is that preferences are placed back into their right relation to being. We will speak later about desire's little tricks and prayer's reformation, but already now you can glimpse it. When the private claimant loosens, the natural order asserts itself without so much struggle. Supply flows into its uses. Right action appears at the hour it is needed. The embarrassment you dreaded either does not come or does not matter. So, for the foundation, take this with you. The issue is not the pronoun. The issue is the concealed claim of a private, separated selfhood thinking it owns life. When the word is restrained, the claim is exposed. When the claim is exposed, it begins to dissolve. And when it dissolves, even for a breath, presence comes forward, not as a guest invited, but as the host we had forgotten. If that is all you gain in the first days, a few breaths in which the click is heard and the private buzz is quieted, you have touched the heart of this work. From there, everything else will be shown to you as needed, and without the frantic little word running ahead to take the bow. Now, let us take a very simple lesson. One of those old-fashioned object lessons that are so plain, the clever mind walks by and misses it. If a glass tumbler were on this table, and we were to stand around it like little children in a science class, the question for the morning would be this: where does the inside of that tumbler leave off, and where does the outside begin? Is there a place on that rim where we can lay a thread and say, here the inside ends, here the outside starts? Are there truly two sides there, an inner and an outer, or is there only glass? Let us look again. The finger can trace along the inner wall and call it inside, then along the outer wall and call it outside. Names, functions. But what is there? Glass. There is but glass. Inside and outside only describe how we are using the glass. We pour the water inside, we wipe the outside. We drink from the inside, we hold the outside. Two in function, not two in substance. The glass does not become two because language assigns it two chores. Now apply the same childlike seeing to the relationship between God and man. Do we have somewhere an invisible God over here, and over here a visible person, separate, private, and trying to get along? Are these two? Or are they one being, one life, one substance, appearing in two functions? God as the invisible essence, the animating, unowned life, and man as the visible form, the expression, the instrument through which that life shows itself. The analogy is not perfect, no analogy is, but it is sufficient for this work. God is our invisible selfhood. We are the externalized form of that selfhood. There is not a me apart from God and a God apart from me, bargaining, punishing, rewarding. There is but life, two in function, not two in being. Now you can begin to appreciate the mischief the little word I is always attempting. The moment I is announced, a chalk line is drawn around the glass. My life inside, your life outside. My mind inside, the world outside. My interests, my fears, my achievements. And there we are, polishing one side of the tumbler as if it were made of a different material than the rest. In that instant, we forget the glass. We live on a border that does not exist except in speech. We create a war between inside and outside and then hire an army of thoughts to defend the line. Oh, not at all, not at all. This does not mean we erase the beautiful uniqueness of your tone, your face, your work. It does not mean the world becomes a gray soup or that all distinctions are denied. The tumbler still has a rim, a base, a certain capacity. It is distinguishable from a plate or a bowl. Individuality of function remains, and thank God it does, or we would be forever looking for our own coat in a sea of coats. But individuality of function is not separation of substance. The mistake is not in being a particular expression. The mistake is in believing that the particular has a private life apart from the life that is all. Let us press this a little farther, because the mind will say, yes, yes, poetry, it sounds lovely. But what about what is going on out there? Is there an out there that is foreign to your being? Is there a separate world made of a second substance intruding on you? Or is there one life, one consciousness, one substance, whose forms appear as neighbor and stranger, as oak tree and bread, as sunrise and problem? Are there two minds, yours laboring late into the night and God's somewhere watching, disinterested? Or is there one mind, being itself as intelligence, as right activity, as the gentle arranging of circumstances when you stop scratching that border with your pronouns? You might say, well then, how do we live practically with this? Exactly as you live with a tumbler. You honor its functions without forgetting its substance. You wash it, you fill it, you use it for what it is meant to do, and you do not, in your imagination, divide it. In the 7-day practice, every time the word I tries to rise up and draw a little chalk line, my need, my opinion, my private misery, we pause, we look, and we ask, where does the inside of this being leave off, and where does the outside begin? And more often than not, there will be a small, merciful quiet. The click, the recognition that the border was a marker pen, not a wall. Do you see the practical result? You cease praying to a God outside to come in and fix the inside. You cease blaming an outside world for disturbing an inside peace. You come, instead, to a center that is not inside or outside, but simply is. And from that center, action happens. Words are given, steps are taken, appointments are kept, meals are cooked, bills are paid. And yet, under it all, there is no little person heroically managing a universe. There is glass being glass. There is life being its own selfhood in and as what you call you. Let us clear away a few more old fears so that the experiment can proceed without superstition. This does not mean we become passive doormats, lying around saying there is only glass, while the cat drinks the milk and the roof leaks. No. No, glass does not stop being serviceable because you have recognized its substance. It becomes more serviceable because you handle it without neurosis. Likewise, recognizing oneness does not paralyze your initiative. It frees it from panic. The hands move more efficiently because the nervous chatter of, I must do this or else I perish, has subsided into, life is here, let life do what it does through these hands. And you will notice something else, and perhaps this will be your first outward validation. Relationships begin to soften around the edges. The old inside-outside pattern in conversation, the need to win, to defend, to be clever, has less fuel. You will find sentences finishing themselves without the old tug. Humor returns. The garbage men rattle their barrels outside and you smile, because for a second you see that even that clatter is not outside your life, foreign to it, attacking it. It is life doing one of its AM functions. Two in function, collector and householder, but not two in being. So oneness is not a poem to be framed. It is a working basis for sanity. When we recognize there is but one life, two in function, not two in being, we stop living on a border. The 7-day practice is the small, homely way we train the tongue to stop drawing lines so that the eye of awareness can see the glass. Every time you refrain from that reflexive I, you are not becoming weird. You are becoming accurate. You are letting language be servant rather than ruler. You are letting being name itself without you, pushing to the front with a badge. And in that honesty, life becomes simpler, freer, and more loving, not because you have arranged better outsides for a frightened inside, but because the glass is recognized as glass, and the water tastes of itself. All right, let us make this homely and workable, because if it cannot be lived in a kitchen and a bus queue and an office, it belongs to a shelf. The experiment is as plain as this. For 7 days, as much as you can without becoming odd or injuring the common sense of your household, Do not speak the word I out loud. That's the whole of it. That is the little lamp we hold. If you wish to add an advanced layer after a day or two, soften me, my, and mine as well. But do not strap yourself into a harness on the first morning. We are not trying to set a record, we are trying to reveal a reflex. Now, how will you speak then? In perfectly simple ways. Use your name the way a mother calls a child from a distance. Joel will be there at 3. Maria is taking the early train. Does it feel slightly childlike on the tongue? Good, let it. Childlikeness is one of the doorways by which heaven enters a conversation. Or you may speak in clean fact without a subject at all. Hungry. Leaving in 10 minutes. Grateful for your help. See how the sentence walks on its own feet without being propped up by a little sovereign. Or you may refer to function. The hands will do the dishes. This body needs a sweater. The activity here is focused on finishing the report. If that feels too formal for the living room, then pare it back. Cold, dishes next. Simpler is truer. If you find yourself in a setting where using your name would create confusion because it sounds like you are referring to someone else, use the gentler workarounds. Yes, understood. We'll send that by noon. Available after lunch. Those little sentences behave. They get the work done. They do not require a parade in their honor. Your speech need not become a performance piece. In fact, if the experiment turns you into an entertainer of grammar, drop the entertainment and return to clean, short statements. We are not producing a new style of talking. We are releasing the pressure in the old one. Now, let me underline this so it shines. Success in this practice is not perfect compliance. Success is instant noticing. The prize is not that for 7 days, not a single I escaped your lips and you earned a ribbon. Oh, not at all, not at all. The prize is that the very instant the private self-reflex tries to step forward with its badge and its story, something in you hears the rustle and turns the light. That is the victory. That is the moment of education. If a dozen eyes slip out before lunch, but at 11:59 one is caught in the act and you smile and let it dissolve, there is your treasure. Every slip, when seen, is a revelation, not a failure. It says, look here, this is how the old center keeps itself busy. To help that moment become fruitful, keep a reset phrase ready. You will be in the middle of a sentence, I really think. And you will hear it, feel it, taste it. Stop right there. Don't flog yourself. Don't apologize to the world. Just pause, breathe, turn within. 1 second is enough. And let the heart say, seek me only. Not seek better speech, not seek public approval, not seek a gold star. Seek me only, there is a presence here. Seek that. In that tiny inward bow, there can be the faintest click, the little assurance that you are no longer negotiating with thought, but standing in the life behind it. Then continue the sentence, now cleaner, trimmed of the claimant. Seems wise to wait. Prefer to listen a moment. Let's consider another angle. The content can remain. The claimant has been dismissed. Please do not become the local oddity or the hall monitor for pronouns. This is work in secret. If there are civil forms to be signed, sign them. If there is a courtroom where the phrase, I swear, is required by law, do not become a martyr to the dictionary. Swear, sign, speak, and smile. The heart of the practice is not performance for an audience. The heart is the inward shift from private ownership to presence. If your job contract or your tax form requires I, let it be ink on paper, not belief in consciousness. Return again to the inner movement, seek me only, and you are kept safe from superstition. How about the daily scene? You are at the coffee counter. Instead of, I'd like a large, please, try large coffee, please. The person behind the counter will not miss you. They have served hundreds of coffees to people who did not introduce themselves first. At the office, received your note, will send the draft by 2. In a family room where tempers like to pitch their tents, instead of I am so tired of this, try tiredness here. Let's pause. Notice what happens to the heat when the private banner is not waved. It may not disappear at once, but often the drama realizes it has lost its audience and sits down. A word about we. Do not hide behind we as a polite mask for the same old private insistence. We think, we prefer, when you mean I want to win, is a game spiritual people like to play. Let's not. Use we when you are truly speaking as a unit in function, team, family, class. Otherwise, keep the sentences clean and spare. Here a comma, there a breath, and the work goes on. If you wish, put a small card in your pocket or a note in your phone with the reset. Seek me only. Touch it as you reach for your keys. As you leave a meeting, glance at it. As you step into the house at day's end, let the words remind you that the practice is not about the tongue alone. It is about lifting above the sea of thought for a breath and letting the presence be the teacher. You will quickly discover that some of your sentences turn into little prayers all by themselves. Grateful. Help is here. Enough for now. These are not requests to an absent power. They are recognitions of an always present life. You may ask, how strict must this be? Strict enough to expose the reflex, gentle enough to keep your humor. If you find yourself becoming tense, brittle, censorious, stop. Laugh. Take a time out, eat something, return. If you find yourself proud of your gymnastics, stop. Laugh at that too. Get thee behind me, grammar. Pride loves a new game and will happily be the star student in a holiness class. We are not giving it a class, we are closing the school. There will be moments when the only way the sentence can be said naturally is with I. Say it, and at the same time, watch the claimant. Watch it take its bow. Watch it ask for applause. See if you can withhold your clapping. Then, at the next sentence, return to the experiment. You will notice that over the days, the distance between the impulse and the noticing shortens, like dawn slowly arriving earlier. That shortening is your progress. That is the measure, not the public record. The instant noticing is the triumph, because in that instant you have risen, even slightly, above the sea of thought and into contact. From there, the rest of the day arranges itself with less friction. Finally, do not announce the fast in the town square. Keep it quiet unless curiosity makes an honest opening. Then, with a smile, say something true and small, listening more this week. That will be enough. Whatever you know in secret is shouted from the housetops, not by your mouth, but by the atmosphere you carry. And if you need a last boundary marker, hold this. The words are not holy. The awareness that uses them is. At the end of 7 days, you may go back to ordinary speech and find it is no longer a throne room, just a toolbox. Then language, redeemed from its old job of guarding a border, will do what it was meant to do, serve love, convey truth, and let life be simple. Seek me only, even in a 3-word sentence at a crowded counter, and you will find that the one you were seeking is the one speaking, the one hearing, and the one living, without any help from your favorite little word. Now, let us be very honest about what happens in the first 48 hours, because those hours can feel like a small circus in a very small tent. The mouth, trained for decades to announce a private center, will reach for the usual flag and find the flagpole missing. There is a brief embarrassment, like walking into the wrong room and smiling at strangers. The cheeks may warm, the shoulders may lift toward the ears. The thought says, "Oh dear, now everyone thinks there is something odd going on," and the impulse to explain leaps up. You see, a spiritual experiment is underway. Resist parading. The practice works better in plain clothes. A little humor under your breath will do more than a paragraph out loud. Listening more this week. If anything must be said, then back to coffee, back to the email, back to the work at hand. The early irritation, please expect it. The private self has lived off constant self-reference the way a vine lives against a wall. Remove the wall and the vine has no place to cling. It flails. It looks for an eye to hook into. You will feel that flailing as impatience when a sentence jams in the doorway, as mockery when you hear yourself say, "Leaving in 10," and the mind chuckles, "Well, that sounded brilliant." Let it chuckle. Let the little comedian have 14 seconds, then smile and carry on. You need a sense of humor for the first days. Without humor, the work turns grim, and the ego loves grim almost as much as it loves applause. Grim makes a little hero of itself. Look how faithfully I suffer for oneness. Oh, not at all, not at all. Oneness does not need martyrs of grammar. It invites witnesses of presence. Now watch the next tactic because it is very quick. If it cannot keep the old form of speech, it will try to keep the old throne by turning the experiment into an achievement. Suddenly, there is a scoreboard in the mind. 3 hours without a slip. A perfect commute, no eye on the freeway. And there is the glint. I did it. Do you hear the joke? The entire project exists to expose that very claimant, and here it is sewing a merit badge on its jacket. Laugh. Not with contempt, not with self-hatred. Laugh the way you laugh when a child hides under a blanket, with both feet sticking out and says, "You can't see me." We see you, dear. We see the tactic. We will not tear the blanket away. We will simply take a breath and let the light come through it. The breath is "seek me only." The light is the faint click, the small shift from thinking about God to the felt isness that precedes the next word. In these first days, there will be a strange comedy at the counter, at the desk, in your own kitchen. Sentences start one way and end another. Words bump into each other, reverse, and form new habits, like puppies trying to find the corner of a rug. Let them tumble. This is not humiliation. This is healing. The great solemn construction called my voice is being relieved of duty. It does not lose its music. It loses its false job as a border guard. There is a moment, perhaps ordering breakfast, when the old mouth opens and something inside says in a kindly way, "Shh," and the sentence comes out clean, unadorned, "Oatmeal, please." And the world does not collapse. The server does not phone the authorities. The sun keeps coming up over the same street. In that very ordinariness, the private self takes a small, involuntary bow out of the center. Irritation is the bodyguard of that private center. Expect it to try to push you back into line. This is ridiculous. This is childish. This is inefficient. Meetings require subjects. Notice the tone. It is not the voice of wisdom. It is the voice of a border police chief whose job depends on the existence of a border. Do not argue with him. Do not stage a debate in your head. Simply do not renew his contract. How? By refusing the fight. When the prickle rises, pause. Feel the air move at the nostrils. Let the eyes soften. Don't correct the family and don't correct yourself with a whip. Correct yourself with a smile. Silently, seek me only. Not seek a cleaner sentence, not seek a better day, not seek to get an A on this assignment. Seek me only, and in that moment the ego's heat cannot find a handle. It slides off like steam off a kettle lid. You will want, in these days, to explain yourself, to excuse, to win the challenge. Winning is the sweetest bait. If you can be the star pupil of silence, the old I can keep its job under a new title, humble achiever. Please do not promote it. Let it retire. Let it go down to Florida. Remember, this is not a moral contest. It is a consciousness experiment. The slip is not a sin. The noticing is the sacrament. Every noticed I is a small resurrection. Something rises above the sea of thought. just for a second, and looks down at the waves calmly. In that rise, the irritation no longer owns you. The next sentence is easier. The room grows kinder. And there is the first mercy, sometimes as soon as the afternoon of day 1, sometimes at breakfast on day 2. Speech slows, not by force, but by the simple absence of the little engine that always rushed to the front of the parade. In the slowing, gaps appear, microscopic at first, half a heartbeat, a quarter of a breath. In those gaps, there is a hush that does not feel like emptiness. It feels like a presence waiting, not impatiently, not anxiously, but the way the ocean waits when a child runs to the edge and stops. In that hush, a sentence rises by itself, and you will hear a new texture in it. Less defending, less convincing, more, here, more, yes, more, enough. Right there, without any fireworks, the shift begins from talking about God to words being suffused by God. Do not try to catch the hush and hold it like a pet. That will turn it into a BBO, and we are not collecting BBOs on day 2. Simply notice and be grateful. The gratitude is also not a performance. It is a quiet warmth in the chest, like remembering the way home. If, after the hush, a clumsy sentence appears and the old I sneaks in, fine. This is a field, not a courtroom. Smile again. Seek me only. Rise again above the sea of thought, even for the blink of an eye. You will discover that the day does not have to be re-engineered for this to work. The children still need lunch. The report still needs its numbers. The garbage men still rattle the lids at 7:15, and the lid sounds like a gong reminding you, 2 in function, not 2 in being. Before these 2 days finish, you may also notice that you are less eager to push your opinion into every opening. Not because opinions are wicked, but because the compulsion weakens when the private announcer is on vacation. Listening becomes surprisingly possible. Spaces open in conversations where you do not have to take the stage to keep yourself alive. And in those spaces, the other person sometimes softens without knowing why. The blessing has already begun, not as a technique, not as something you do to them, but as an atmosphere no longer crowded with your favorite little word. So, do not be dismayed by the early comedy, the friction, the slight panic. They are not penalties, they are evidence. They reveal how addicted the false center has been to its own echo. And do not gloat if the first day feels easy. That too can be the ego in clever shoes. Simply continue. Keep the humor handy, keep the reset close, keep the experiment secret and cheerful. In the small gaps, the first mercy is present. It will teach more in a breath than all our sentences can in a week. And soon, as the narration weakens just a shade, you will feel the sentences turn, without your effort, into little prayers that do not ask for anything at all. They simply recognize what is. Now something new begins to dawn. You will notice it sometime on the 3rd morning, often not in the silence of a chair, but in the noise of a hallway, or perhaps while rinsing a cup. The experiment is not really about wording. Clever phrasing is a child's game. It has its place. It trained us to become aware. But now the point turns, like a key in a lock, and you feel that this is a question of altitude, not eloquence. The work is to rise above the sea of thought that swirls around a private story, and to stand, even for 10 seconds, in that clear air where sentences are no longer inventions, but simple prayer. Let us be very plain about thought, because the mind loves to argue that thought is noble and necessary, and therefore should be trusted as captain. Thought is everything that can be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, and just as importantly, everything the mind then reviews, rewinds, rehearses, predicts, edits, and dramatizes. Thought is yesterday's conversation replayed with better comebacks. It is tomorrow's meeting scripted to guarantee applause. It is the smell of coffee becoming a memory, becoming a desire, becoming a plan. It is the ache in the knee plus the diagnosis you read, plus the friend's story, plus the late-night search that turned into a storm. Thought is the parade of headlines, the tune on the radio stuck behind the eye, the grocery list held like sacred writ, the narrative that says, "This is who I am, and this is what's at stake if things don't go my way." Thought, in short, is the entire sea of pictures, words, and sensations splashing up against awareness, and then awareness mistaking the splashes for its life. Do not misunderstand. This is not an attack on the instrument of thinking. Oh, not at all. Not at all. We will always need the arithmetic to balance the account, the recipe to bake the bread, the map to reach the address. Function is wholly in its place. But when thought, which should be a valet, climbs into the master's chair, turmoil follows. The proof? Look at the vocabulary that fastens the anchor chain. I should. I must. I failed. I am not enough. 4 short words, one of them always the same, and yet in those slogans a universe of pressure and isolation is tightened around the heart. Now remove the little claimant from the front of the sentence and see what remains. Should, must, failed, not enough. They are no longer declarations from a throne. They are weather patterns passing on a Tuesday. Without the claimant, the loop is exposed as an echo. Noise demanding a king to obey it. It is as if a town crier arrives in an empty square and bellows the ordinance with nobody standing under the bell. The spell breaks. A breath happens. And in that breath, you may hear a different sentence come. Not a thought you cook up, but a prayer born of contact. Help is present. Be still. Here. This is the beginning of rising above the sea of thought. What does above mean? Not spatially. We do not climb a ladder inside the skull. We are speaking of a qualitative shift, a lifting of attention out of the choppy water of content into the clarity of awareness itself. You will know it by its feel. The mind quiets without being forced. The shoulders go down a half-inch. The sentence that was going to defend you seems unnecessary. You feel this is the only word that will do. A click. A small, gentle click, as if a tumbler fell into place inside a lock, and the door you were pushing finally swings of its own accord. That click is not doctrine. It is not theology. It is a direct sense of presence, as palpable as the weight of your own hand. There is an isness prior to the next thought about it, and in that isness the next word is given rather than chosen. Day 3 and 4 can contain several of these small clicks, and they often come when you have forgotten to look for them. Stirring soup, standing at the crosswalk, setting down the phone after an anxious text, and deciding, without drama, to be quiet for a breath. One moment prior, the loop was tightening. I really must fix this before anyone notices. Then the practice interrupts. Not a performance, just the simple refusal to let the private announcer take the microphone. 10 seconds of no speech, outside or inside. Just being. Seek me only. Do not analyze the feeling. Do not catalog it for later. Stand there, eyes open if you like, and let the quiet have you. In those 10 seconds, the sea of thought keeps moving, but you are not bobbing in it. You are awareness itself, noticing waves while your feet are on the shore. I recommend this micro practice now as your chief tool. Several times a day, choose no schedule, or if you like, borrow one from the bells of the city. Let the red light at the corner be your monk's bell. Let the ding of an elevator, the clatter of a lid, the act of putting your hand on a doorknob serve as the signal. Stop speaking for 10 seconds. Do not even speak to yourself. Feel being, not as an idea, as a fact. The breath enters, the breath leaves, the room hums. The presence that is not inside or outside is simply here. Then resume, not with a rush, but with the word that presents itself. You will be astonished to discover that many problems do not require your old speech to be addressed. Some resolve in the quiet, some rearrange, and some still need your hands, your email, your call. But now they are done from presence, not from panic. You may ask, if I rise above thought, will I become irresponsible? The fear is understandable. The ego whispers, without me, the roof leaks, the report fails, the child misses the bus. But see how that's another loop begging for its badge. Rising above thought does not remove capacity, it releases it. In the click, attention returns to the one life being itself, as these hands, this schedule, this very task. Action is cleaner. Fewer words are needed to do the same job, and when a word is necessary, it comes on its own feet, not as a defense of your importance. You will send the email with 2 lines instead of 11, and it will be understood. You will look at the child and say, shoes, and the shoes will somehow make their way onto the feet without the household theater. Watch how the old loops attempt a comeback on the afternoon of day 3. I should have clicked earlier. I must click better. I failed at the 10 seconds. That was only 4. I am not spiritual enough. Everywhere the same anchor. Smile at it. Let it speak into an empty room. Then kindly return to the practice. Do not insert the private name at the front of the sentence to scold yourself into holiness. Simply pause. 10 seconds. Seek me only, and you will feel it again. The little surrender that is not loss, but relief. The heat leaves the cheeks. The chest opens. Sometimes even the eyes grow moist for no reason you can give in words. The presence does its own introduction. From here, your sentences will begin to taste different. They do not ask, they recognize. God is here. Enough. Thank you. They are not petitions to a power outside the glass to come in and make the inside better. They are acknowledgments that there is but glass, one life, appearing in 2 functions, and that the only thing that ever tangled us was a pronoun and a belief. This is why we say the presence becomes the teacher. Thinking won't make this so. Sermons won't cement it. Only the felt awareness, click, does the educating, and once that contact is there, however slight, you will find yourself being steered not by anxiety, but by an inner quiet that has its own wisdom about when to call, when to wait, when to say yes, when to say no, and when to say nothing at all. So let day 3 and 4 be devoted to altitude more than cleverness. Keep the practice secret and cheerful. Use the 10-second stops as your rope ladder. If a storm of thought throws its spray against your face, do not try to hold back the ocean with a teacup. Step onto the shore of being for a breath and let the waves be waves. Then return to your desk, your stove, your steering wheel, and notice that life goes on, simpler, freer, and more loving, not because you conquered thought by thought, but because you ceased giving the echo your name. Where God is, you are. And where you are, speaking from that contact, sentences themselves become prayer, and prayer is realization, and realization quietly orders the day. Day 5 is where the old habit tries for one last big sale. It says, this is all very lovely, this click and this hush and these shorter emails, but now let's do real prayer. And by real, it means the busy negotiation where a private I instructs the infinite on schedules, outcomes, and suitable improvements. You know the routine. We inform omniscience as if it were a clerk with a clipboard. Please see to the ankle by Tuesday, and if you could nudge that client to be reasonable, and, by the way, about the weather for Saturday's event. Is it possible that we are hoping to influence God, to persuade God, to correct God's oversight? We smile because just the phrasing reveals the impossibility of it. The infinite is not a committee waiting to be lobbied. True prayer is not the small voice of panic pleading with a sky. True prayer is the silence that recognizes presence here. Take the sun for a moment. We cannot stand in a shaded basement and pray, "Sun, kindly shine more loudly through this concrete." We cannot advise the sun to arrange a private beam to tan only the left arm and not the right, because of picture day. No, no. The sun is the sun. The operation is constant, impartial, effortless. What is our part? We bring ourselves into the sunshine. Automatically, without bargaining, warmth appears, light appears, growth appears. We do not beg for warmth. We consent to be in it. The warmth is not a separate gift. It is the nature of the sun disclosed where we stand unshaded. Prayer is like that. It is not a negotiation. It is a turning, a consenting, a standing, unshaded, in God awareness. Then effects, which are not additions to God but qualities of God, present themselves as naturally as warmth, health, provision, right activity, peace. These are not bonuses handed out for eloquent petitions. They are expressions of the presence we have consented to stand in. Now watch how the 7-day challenge lays its clean finger on this. If you cannot say, "I need," what remains? If you cannot begin with, "I want," "I hope," "I fear," what is left in the mouth? Only the turning, only the inward lifting we have been practicing. Only seek me only. That is the prayer. Not seek weather, seek funds, seek friendly faces, seek quick fixes. Seek me only. Seek the awareness of God's presence, here now as the very life being the scene and its actors. And because that presence is wholeness itself, the scene shifts, or we see the scene truly, or we are given the quiet word that shows the next step. The prayer now becomes the realization that where God is, I am, and where I am in truth, God is. And yes, for the 7 days we do away with the little claimant, but the principle stands. There is no me or you, separate and apart from God. There is but glass, one life, two in function, not two in being. Let us be very clear by negation, or the mind will try to make monks of us. This does not mean inaction. Oh, not at all, not at all. This does not mean we let roofs leak while humming hymns about sunshine. If the roof leaks, call the roofer. But notice what is absent when prayer is realization, the anxious outlining, the rehearsal of disasters, the private plan we purchase and then invoice God to reimburse. When we stand in the awareness of presence, activity flows without strain. We still dial numbers, prepare meals, speak with doctors, send proposals. The difference is the origin. We are not managing outcomes to prove a private self successful. We are allowing the one to function as these faculties in this hour for this purpose, and then to release the moment when it is complete. That is what Seek Me Only does. It removes the ghost grip from the reins. You will discover a peculiar comedy on day 5. The tongue tries to bargain out of habit. Could we please have just this one little special parking place? And a smile will rise because the picture is so clear now. Are we really believing that a cosmic vending machine awaits our coin? Gently, we lay down the coin. We lift into the click, 10 seconds if needed. Eyes on the crosswalk, hands on the wheel, present to presence. And then either the space opens or it does not. And either way, there is no deprivation in us, no private battle with life. Another street appears, another timing, another mercy we could not have outlined. If a line opens at the market precisely when we arrive, we do not chalk it up to our persuasive prayer. We recognize a fact. Where God is realized, the forms of good reassemble around that realization as freely as birds around a branch. But what of loved ones? The mind will protest here. Surely it is right to ask for him, for her. And because love is so dear, we must be very tender and very true. To make a list for God, do thus and so for this person, is again to assume separation, a God on one side, a sufferer on the other, and an I in the middle brokering terms. What happens if, instead, we refuse the broker's badge? We stand in the simple fact, God is the only life of that one, here, now. There is but glass, two in function, not two in being. In that realization, a universal blessing is felt. It is not a thought thrown across distance. It is presence being itself where we are aware, and because there is no outside to that, the grace touches what we call them without effort. Often there is an outward sign, a softening in the voice, a timely call, a new clarity, but even before signs, there is peace, and that peace is itself health to the mind and marrow. So seek me only becomes the one true request, repeated often not with a shout, but with a breath, in the chair before emails, in the hallway before answering a question, in the doorway before entering a room that has held tension. 10 seconds, no petitioner, no negotiation, just turning, consenting, standing, unshaded. Let the click come or not. We do not measure. We simply refrain from telling God a story, and in the refraining, the story loses its authority. Then act as needed, speak as needed, rest as needed. You will notice that prayer flows into doing, and doing flows back into prayer, and the seam between them fades. And if the old habit slips out on day 5, I need, I want, I must, do not turn this into a courtroom. Put down the gavel. Smile. The mercy we met on day 2 remains. Notice, pause, seek me only. The presence will do its own introduction again. Then let words come that recognize rather than request. God is here, enough, thank you. In that way, prayer ceases to be a project and becomes atmosphere. The day is ordered not by deals struck in the sky, but by the sun we quietly stood in. And from that standing, warmth is certain, not because we deserved it, not because we demanded it, but because it was always the nature of the light to be light, and the nature of life to be loving where it is realized. Day 6 is when the little trinkets start rattling their boxes. They have been there all along, of course, but the earlier days kept us busy with the mechanics of speech and the discovery of the click. Now that the mouth is calmer and the prayer is simpler, there is space enough to hear the rustle of desire dressing itself in holy robes. I want. I must have. I deserve. I will be safe when. Do you feel how each of these hangs its weight on the hook of that little word? The pronoun is the peg on which the craving hangs its coat. Remove the peg, and the coat drops to the floor with a harmless puff. Let us give these cravings their proper, funny name. They are BBOs. The BBOs for which men fought, for which men die, for which nations argue at traffic lights. A BBO is anything to which we attach undue importance. Importance that promises life, identity, security. Status is a BBL. Applause is a BBLE. Control over outcomes is a BBLE. Being right at dinner is a BBO. Being seen as very spiritual indeed. Oh, that is a velvet BBO. It doesn't mean these forms are evil. Oh, not at all. Not at all. Money is not evil. Gadgets are not evil. Relationships are not evil. Health routines and productivity tools and calendars with neat colored squares are not evil. The BBLE is the clutching, the fear, the if this fails, I fail, the without this there is no me, the with this finally enough. That clutching hides inside the word I. Remove I and see what remains. Wanting without a claimant, a passing weather, a wave on the sea of thought. Easy to watch, easier to bless. Consider a day's inventory. Money, the invoices, the balances, the late fee we rehearse. Confronting with a speech that will showcase our maturity. The BBLE is not the dollars. The BBLE is the fear that rises when a number on a screen decides whether there is a you. Gadgets. The phone that claims to save time while stealing all of it. The upgrade that almost solves discontent if only we fetch the next charger. The BBLE is not the device. The BBLE is the glow we borrow from owning it. Relationships, the dear faces at the table, the quiet agreements we keep. The BBLE is not love. The BBLE is the drive to make them reflect a picture that flatters us. Health routines, a jog, a salad, a vitamin, bless them. The BBLE is the sentence, I am a failure without this sequence performed precisely at 6:03 a.m. Productivity, lists, checkmarks, timers that beep. The BBLE is not order. The BBLE is the little obituary we write when a day refuses to bend to our outline. Do you see? The forms are innocent. The obsession, the undue importance, is the BBLE, and it wears the badge of I. Here is the paradox that sets us free and makes us truly master of fate rather than victim of fate. The way to have rightful use of all these things, the way to have money serve its purpose, gadgets serve their function, relationships be love, the body be cared for, work be fruitful, is to surrender the craving and fear around them. Give up the fighting, the battling, the struggling, not the work but the inner combat. The moment a form ceases to be a savior or an enemy, it becomes what it was intended to be, a servant, a utensil, a scene, a season. And you, not as a private somebody, but as the one appearing in this function, are free within it. Now, how do we do this practically on day 6 without becoming odd citizens who smile at appliances? A simple cue word. When craving rises, when the thought forms around the hook, I want, I must have, I cannot be happy unless, whisper within, BBL. Let the word roll around the mouth of the mind, BBL. It is a funny sound. It refuses solemnity. It punctures the trance. Having named it, do not argue, do not defend, do not confess your crimes to the kitchen tiles. Smile, then turn within. 10 seconds. Seek me only. No vocabulary needed beyond the turning. No petition. Just the click, if it comes, or the quiet waiting if it does not. Rise above the sea of thought for a breath, and then, from presence, act as needed, or don't. Buy the thing, or don't. Correct the spreadsheet, or don't. Speak, or keep silence. The action will be cleaner without the hook tearing your lip. Use negation to stay safe. It does not mean we stop paying bills. It does not mean we cancel birthdays. It does not mean we refuse surgery and insist on sainthood by willpower. No. No. It means we refuse to idolize the bill or the gift or the procedure as life or death to a separate self. There is no such separate self. There is but glass. Two in function, not two in being. God as invisible life, we as visible form. In that oneness, supply is rightful, activity is rightful, intelligence is rightful. This is why desire loses its tyranny when exposed as a BBLE. We are no longer asking the world to knit us an identity. We are letting identity be itself and then choosing or refusing forms as free men and women. Watch the BBLE that is being right. It wears a crown. It will ruin a supper to win a scepter made out of a salt shaker. The sentence begins, I just need you to understand. And it means, I need my picture of myself reflected accurately in your eyes, or I vanish. Whisper, Beeble, smile. 10 seconds. Seek me only. Then say, perhaps, let's eat while it's warm. Or say nothing, or say, you may be right. Watch how the room softens, not because you performed a strategy, but because the claimant left. BBLEs have no oxygen when the private self is not panting over them. There is also the gentle velvet BBL of being seen as spiritual. On day 6, with 5 days of practice behind us, the temptation arrives to be the quiet one in the meeting, the sage at the lunch counter, the expert in non-saying. That, too, is a BBL. Whisper it, smile. Let presence choose when to be quiet and when to laugh loudly. The presence has no need of a costume. It does not admire your restraint. It animates your naturalness. In its light, laughter is holy, a hammer is holy, a nap is holy, a spreadsheet is holy, not because you stain them with seriousness, but because there is no outside to God. Carry this cue word into the small corners of the day. The parking space we discussed yesterday, BBOs, the perfect number on the scale, BBOs, the polite reply you draft and redraft to appear serene, BBOs. Every time you label one, you are not shaming yourself. You are trading slavery for freedom. The chain is seen, and because it is seen, it is already breaking. You will notice that many things remain in your life, but they do not own you. Some things leave without grief. Some things arrive without pursuit. And what remains runs on a new current, quiet usefulness, rightful joy. In this way, day 6 is not a removal of pleasure. It is the restoration of pleasure to its rightful place. Without a private I hanging its whole worth on a trinket, even a cup of coffee can be heaven without being a god. Even a compliment can be sweet without becoming an altar. Even a disagreement can be bright without becoming a war. Desire, exposed as a BBO, loses its throne. And in the vacancy, the present sits where it always sat, and life, simple, free, loving, flows as naturally as warmth in sunshine when we have stepped out, unshaded, for 10 seconds, and consented to be who we cannot not be. Seek me only, then see what remains. You will like what remains. It will not glitter like a BBO. It will glow like peace. Day 7 arrives almost shyly. There is no parade, no confetti, no diploma ceremony. There is just a room that feels larger than its square feet, a body that is no longer preoccupied with defending a station in life, a voice that has mislaid its old urgency to be heard first and loudest, less defensiveness, less self-importance, a surprising kindness that does not need to be announced, and an ability to act with clarity without the old strain. The air is the same air that was in the house yesterday, but it does not land on you the same way. The difference is not in the world. The difference is in the broadcast. The claimant has lowered the volume. In that quiet, something else, someone else, fills the room. On day 7, this shows up in the smallest scenes. The kettle screams. The doorbell rings at the wrong time. The inbox behaves like a puppy who learned a new trick at 3 a.m. And yet there is an ease and a humor that were not there on day 1. The sentence that would have jumped to defend the honor of your calendar never quite gathers enough troops to stage the battle. The shoulders don't rise. The face softens. Action is taken, yes, but it is taken from an inner rest. A call is made without rehearsing a theater piece. A boundary is set in one clean line instead of 12 jagged ones. The child is told shoes and then perhaps thank you. And a minute later, one realizes there was no lecture on responsibility, no attempt to create a small adult in a hurry. The scene has order without the strain of the old commander. You will also notice a new quiet authority that is not domination. It is the authority of the sun, not the spotlight. It does not demand attention. It simply shines, and in shining, it reveals. Because the separate I has been sent to the bench for a week, there is no one left to sell, hustle, or fear. There is presence, and presence is its own credential. When words come from that place, they are simple and strong. No can be said without apology and without injury. Yes can be said without calculation, and very often no word is needed. The situation clears by itself when panic steps aside. Now, this is very important. If there is no separate I, then love of neighbor ceases to be a virtue we strive to display and becomes the recognition of a fact. Love your neighbor as yourself means love the one being itself as that neighbor. There is but glass. God is the invisible life. We are the visible form, two in function, not two in being. To be kind to the cashier is not to do them a favor. It is to recognize your own being in a different function. To refuse retaliation is not to be morally superior. It is to see that there is no separate self left to be insulted or avenged. When the little claimant is quiet, what remains is the natural affection of life for its own expression, everywhere, under every name, in every suit or dress or uniform, on every street. This is where we meet what the old writings called absent treatment, and let us put it in plain clothing so that no superstition sneaks in. It simply means this: the inward recognition of oneness silently influences the atmosphere, without force, without mental pushing, without trying to bend another mind. We are not sending thoughts at people as if they were targets. Oh, not at all, not at all. We are standing in the fact of God's presence here, and because there is no outside to that, the quiet we know is quietly known. The peace we yield to is yielded to. The love we realize as being radiates as naturally as warmth radiates from the sun. Never commanded, never directed, never managed. Let me give you what I have seen in small ways that any of us may recognize. A family conversation that has circled the same pothole for a year begins to drift toward a new lane. There is no heroic speech. You sit, you breathe, you remember 10 seconds, seek me only, and the sentence that would have set the trap does not arrive. Someone else's sentence arrives softened. Laughter shows up without irony. The old edge dissolves as if a draft under the door had been sealed. Or this, an afternoon habit that usually grips at 4 o'clock, the extra cup, the scroll, the kitchen raid, loses its badge. The hand moves toward the cupboard. The bell rings in the mind, amble, and then, without drama, the hand attends to something else. It is not willpower. It is not a new identity project called the one who has conquered snacks. It is the absence of a claimant who needed sugar to prop up a separate self. Another day 7 scene, a stranger muttering on a bus, the kind that once would have made you shrink into your seat and build walls made of headlines. Today, not as a performance, but because it is already true, you turn within for 10 seconds. No words, no petition for a show, just the click, if it comes, the simple standing unshaded. Then, in its own timing, the muttering softens. The eyes lift. Perhaps nothing visible happens at all, but you discover that fear does not happen, and that in itself is peace sent into the neighborhood. One evening you enter a room you know has held tension. Ordinarily, armor would be strapped on at the threshold. On day 7, the threshold is not a battlefield. It is a gate. You stand at it, breathe, realize presence, and walk in empty-handed. The talk is plain, the agreements are cleaner, the sky over the house seems 2 shades higher. Be certain we are not drifting into the swamp of mind control. We are not putting suggestions into receptive brains or plotting outcomes with a spiritual label. That would be the old I in a new costume. This is the opposite. This is what happens when the broadcast of separateness ceases. Silence has its own speech, and peace has its own contagion. The atmosphere takes its cue from the realized center, not from the nervous outline. The proof, if you want it, is in the lack of strain. There is no aftertaste of manipulation in the mouth. There is no pride story attached afterward. Did you see what I did? Because the answer is, nothing was done. The one was allowed to be, and in being, it ordered the moment. You will likely notice that conversations become cleaner, not just kinder, though kinder happens, but cleaner. You answer the question actually asked. You ask the question you mean. 10 minutes do the work that used to take an hour because half the hour had been spent defending a picture. A colleague who lived for debate now has nothing to push against and wanders off to find another windmill. A neighbor who needed 3 compliments to function is suddenly content with a wave and a shared joke about the weather. Why? The mirror no longer needs polishing. It's just a mirror. When the eye relaxes, there is nothing for flattery to stick to and nothing for insult to pierce. That is quiet authority. It is not indifference. It is freedom. In the same way, certain compulsions soften. The phone that had become a deity blinks, and you do not genuflect. The show begins, and you forget to offer yourself to it. A headline arrives, but it does not colonize your chest. Not because a new, sterner sheriff has replaced the old one, but because the town has been reunited with the country. The fence was imaginary. The one is being itself, and BBOs, deprived of oxygen, tire of their own drama. Let us be still for 10 seconds here. Just sit in the fact. Seek me only. No language needed. If the click comes, it comes. If it does not, there is still being. There is still this breath. There is still the room, now or later, quietly arranged by what you did not do. This is blessing without boundaries, not sentimental, not selective, not the property of a virtuous tribe, but the nature of reality when the separate self-claim is not being voiced. The car ahead eases, the clerk's shoulders drop, the child's eyes find yours without bargaining, and if none of these outer signs appear, the inner sign does. Peace, which is itself the health of your day and of your neighbor's day, because there is no line between them. The 7-day work has not made a hero out of a human. It has exposed the illusion of a separate hero and left in its wake a presence that does not need a name to love, to act, to bless. Where God is, here, there is oneness, lived, not discussed. And where oneness is lived, life is simpler, freer, and more loving, because it cannot be otherwise. Now, what have we actually done this week? Not a stunt, not a novelty for polite company, but a transparent little proving ground that let us watch identity stage its comebacks. Each moment the lips prepared to say, I. Each time the tongue leaned forward to introduce a story. There was the old claimant at the curtain peeking, clearing its throat, preparing its entrance. A small resurrection attempt. Let me back on the stage. The show cannot go on without me. And in that split second of seeing, we learned more about identity than a shelf of heavy books could give. We saw where the picture defends itself, where the fear keeps its keys, where the desire polishes its badge. And each time we did not quite give it the line, something else arrived, a hush, a click, that inner insurance that says, the one is here. Die daily. It has sounded so grim to so many. Graveyards, sackcloth, a morbid watch. Oh, not at all, not at all. To die daily is not self-hatred, not the punishment of a sinner, not the proud hunger of an ascetic who wants medals for emptiness. To die daily is the gentle, repeated surrender of a false center that was never the life of you. It is the refusal to let a pronoun pretend to be a person. Deny thyself, the Master said. Which self? The personal sense, the anxious, comparative, lonely construction that must be admired to breathe and must be defended to sleep. That one we let go again and again, sometimes 20 times before breakfast, and the letting go is not a grim labor. It is a turning. 10 seconds. Seek me only. Rise above the sea of thought for one breath, one honest breath, and let the borrowed center dissolve into the being that is already being you. We have, all along, 2 identities offered to our awareness. One is the personal sense, limited, timed, scarce, hoping to climb a ladder that never stays still, a life that runs on comparisons and reviews. That one has a resume and a grievance file. It tenses at traffic lights and measures the worth of its day by how many BBOs can be stacked before bedtime. The other is divine selfhood, whole, supplied, guided, the invisible God as our very life, showing up as intelligence, affection, and right activity without bragging about it. There is but glass, one life, two in function, not two in being. God is the invisible selfhood. We are the visibility of that. When we die daily, we are not murdering a real self. We are withdrawing our belief from a mask and finding the face behind it. Do not misunderstand the slips, the relapse into first-person grammar, the sudden flare of I want, the tightness that insisted on being right about the price of a tomato. These are not proof that the work failed. They are the curriculum. They are the exact places where attachment hides its stash. Each slip rang a bell, and the bell did not condemn, it taught. Here I am, the attachment said, right here in this praise, in this outrage, in this daydream about being admired for not saying I. We laugh, we whisper Bible if we need to, and we do what we have come to love. 10 seconds, seek me only, and the hook loosens without a courtroom. In this way, failure is converted into instruction, and instruction matures into freedom. The difference between yesterday and today is not that perfection has appeared in the mirror. It is that awareness has grown, and with awareness the grip has softened. Now, a question that bears fruit. Who is doing this practice? If we look closely, we may find a new performer peeking out, a spiritual version of the old I, collecting points for restraint, composing the memoir, My 7 Days Without I, and How I Achieved Enlightenment at the Supermarket. Get thee behind me, actor. Let that one die too, gently. The moment we feel the performer tightening, that is our cue. Stop. Smile. Seek me only. Not a better performance, not a more artful script, but presence. The practice is not accomplished by a private somebody. It is allowed by a willingness to stand unshaded in the sun until the warmth becomes natural. I live, yet not I. Christ liveth my life. That is not poetry for church air. It is statement of identity. Divine selfhood is doing its own being, and our part is consent. If on some afternoon the mood returns, the old heaviness, the argument we rehearse with an invisible audience, and the word I tumbles out before we remember the agreement, do not build a scaffold of regret. No, no. Recognize that this very stumble is grace in work clothes. It is showing you the exact doorway you pass through when you forget. Thank it for calling, and then, without drama, step through the real doorway. The quiet, the click, the awareness that does not need a sentence to stand upright. What will happen? Sometimes an outer change, sometimes a subtle shift of light inside the same room. But always this. The center moves from the little chair to the great one, and life is easier to carry. So the debrief is not a scorecard. It is a re-seeing. We see that the word I, so small and so busy, has been trying to sell us a separate selfhood. We see that to die daily is to stop buying. We see that the only dying that takes place is the ebbing of a superstition, and the only living that remains is the life that was present before the superstition began and will be present after the superstition forgets to wake up. We see that prayer becomes realization, desire fades into usefulness, and love widens without our engineering it. Carry the gentleness forward. The work is not harsh, it is wholly common sense. Each day, again and again, as needed, we let the old center dissolve, not with a whip, but with a smile, not with a rule book, but with a breath, until the one remains as our felt identity. And as that one lives its life, you will find the calendar lighter and the conscience clearer, because there is no separate somebody to impress and no separate world to fear. Where God is, here the death of the I is not a loss. It is the unveiling of the only life there is, and that life, being what it is simple, free, and loving by nature. Seek me only. Let that be the debrief and the daily bread. So now we close the circle. And as you suspect, we close it where we began. Not with better wording, but with steadier contact. The presence that needs no I has been here already, quietly keeping watch while we learned the sound of our own habits. Let us keep it simple. Let us make this sustainable, even homely, so that kitchen tables and traffic lights and laundry baskets can share in the blessing. First, a daily bookend. Never begin the day with a screen or a scheme. Begin with contact. 10 seconds will do, and often it will grow by itself. Sit on the edge of the bed or by the sink while the water warms, and make no petition. Presence first, then activity. The old reflex will try to outline the day. I must, I have to, and that is your cue to stand unshaded. Seek me only, the same at night. Never put your head on the pillow without a minute of turning within. Let the pictures of the day soften in the presence that was never threatened by them. You will sleep not as a general guarding a fort, but as a field under moonlight. It does not mean we become pious statues. Oh, not at all, not at all. It means that we refuse to let the clock choose our center. We choose first and last the one. Second, a rhythm for the long road. Repeat the 7-day practice as a monthly retreat, not as a contest, but as a cleansing rain. Or, if that feels large, take 1 day each week as a no-I day. A recalibration day. Keep the sense of humor close. You will need it when the kettle screams, at precisely the moment you are being very spiritual. Carry the Bible word forward as a pocket tool. When desire or self-importance leans on the old pronoun, whisper Bible, smile, and turn within. If a whole day feels too much in a busy season, take a no-I hour. Mark it on the calendar like any other appointment with sanity. These small renewals keep the window clear. Now, let us meditate a few minutes. Let's be very still. Close the eyes if it helps. Loosen the jaw. Let the shoulders remember gravity. Feel the breath arrive without being called and leave without being pushed. Nothing to fix, nothing to improve. Thought will bob. That is the sea being the sea. We are not trying to empty it with a teaspoon. We are rising above the sea of thought, not by climbing, but by sinking into being. No petition, no outline, just awareness. A sense, however faint, of that quiet that is not made of opinion. If a word is helpful, let it be this, here. Or, if the heart prefers, seek me only. Wait for nothing. If the click comes, it comes. If it does not, the sun is still the sun, and we are standing in it. A few more breaths. Presence first. Then the day or the night unfolds under its government. When we come together again, bring 3 things. Bring your strangest moment of the week, the one that made you laugh at yourself or at the timing of grace. Bring your hardest moment, the one that showed you where the hook still hides. And bring the moment the click appeared, even if it was a half-click, an unnameable easing. We share these not to stage a pageant of holiness, but to prove a universal truth in common life. Whatever you know in secret is shouted from the housetops. Your simple report is a benediction to someone else's bus stop. You will find this closing is also an opening. The day begins and ends in the same center, and the middle is framed by the same trust. There is but glass, one life, 2 in function, not 2 in being. God, invisible and infinite, is our life. We, visible and ordinary, are its living form. As this awareness settles, prayer simplifies to realization. Where God is, I am, and where I am, God is. Not a boast, not a banner, just a statement of fact about the nature of the glass. Seek the presence and all else is added, because the source never travels without its qualities. You cannot stand in sunshine and bargain for warmth or a tan. Stand unshaded, and the warmth is law, the color inevitable. So, morning and night, presence first. Each week a no-I day to rinse the dust. Each month, if you can, 7 days to remember that language is not the door, contact is. Keep the little tools, BBL, 10 seconds. Rise above the sea of thought within reach. Use them gently. Smile often. And as you go, notice how life answers simplicity with more simplicity, how love appears without reaching, how authority arrives without a fist. Seek me only. Let that be the bookend and the bread, the quiet government of your hours. And then watch, without grasping, without management, as what is needed is added in its season from the source that includes every quality it gives.